let's talk to Steve in Nebraska. Let's go to Steve in Nebraska. He's been waiting the longest, actually, because I think this ties into what we're talking about. Maybe, actually, I have no idea. We'll figure it out. Steve, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Yeah, welcome back, Dan, and congrats on being newly wedded. Hi,
Thank
Sarah,
you.
and happy Easter weekend, everyone. Thanks for allowing us the opportunity to discuss strong evidence exoplanet K218b has extraterrestrial life. And this is buzzing all over the internet.
Before you get into that,
right?
Because I have from the call screener that this may or may not impact you being a deist or not. Like this impacts your religious faith, if it's true. Is that right?
Well, I believe that God is advanced, extraterrestrial, technologically advanced beings who've interacted with ancient people and cultures. So I would have to say, because I believe in a God that interacts with people or has, that I would be more of a theist. Would you not?
Okay, that's really interesting. I would love to talk about that, if that's okay. Where does that belief come from?
Well, there's a lot of evidence now that there is alien life. Did you guys hear about this team of Cambridge scientists who are strongly, highly confident that the James Webb Telescope has detected biosignatures in the atmosphere of exoplanet K218b. Have you guys heard this?
I haven't heard about that. I don't know if Sarah has either. Sarah, have you heard about that?
I saw that what was published this week, and it was, from what I read, it was not that they were absolutely certain, that it was potential, and maybe this means there could possibly be signs of life, but I think it's overstating it to say that we know for sure that there is life.
Yeah, and let's say this too, Steve, because let's say you're right and there absolutely is life on this exoplanet. I'm curious, what does that do for your God belief there? Because I'm having trouble making that connection.
Well, it leaves open the possibility that the Elohim were extraterrestrially technologically advanced beings. I think it leaves that possibility open.
Wouldn't it be open even if we didn't find life? Why does that make it more possible?
Well, I think that if there's this strong evidence of alien life, then does that not make it more likely that the ancient alien sky gods could have existed? Or could have.
I'm asking you. I don't know. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm generally wondering, does it make it more likely? I don't know. I don't know that it necessarily does. Sarah, do you think so, or?
Yeah. So just if there is some type of alien life in some way, that doesn't give us evidence of your specific type of alien, nor is it evidence that that specific type of alien ever made it to Earth, or that specific type of alien has advanced technology.
Yeah. Or can create life or anything. Yeah.
So these Cambridge scientists with, I think, a Sigma 3 level of confidence, that's over 99%. We're confident that James Webb's telescope has detected a chemical that's known on Earth anyways to be only exist in the presence of life. And that, I think, is menthol sulfide or some such chemical. And they can be produced by life. And they detected this on this planet that's about 125 light years from Earth. Now, it's probably a planet that's mostly water. So it's what they call a Hycean world. So we shouldn't have to panic because the life on this planet isn't going to be the same spacefaring beings that drive the pulsars or have flooded the Earth with comet strikes or anything like that. So
well, that's good.
Kind of life, same life. So nobody need to hit the panic button about being invaded.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep reorienting the conversation, Steve, but I am curious about this because like I can't debate with you about news articles I haven't read, right? And I'm not seeking to debate either, but I'm just very curious because it's a very unique claim here. This idea that there's an extraterrestrial being or civilization that we may consider to be God, and I'm still having trouble with this. I need you to help me out. How does the possibility of extraterrestrial life make a creator god or creator civilization more likely? Because my understanding of life is that it came just on its own. Like there didn't have to be a creator, right? Like that there are natural forces at play that create life. So if we found life on other planets, I would assume that they came from those same processes, right? I wouldn't assume necessarily that there's a creator involved. So why shouldn't I believe that?
Well, I think there's signs of in our DNA. I think there's an extraterrestrial signal.
Okay.
If you take all the amino acids that can be sufficiently defined by their codons, first and second base nucleotides, and you take the atomic masses of their componential, their side chain, main chain, total atomic masses, and you add them up, you get an equation that would represent a mathematical equation for a Pythagorean or an Egyptian triangle. So there's an alien signals in our DNA.
All right, Sarah, what comments on that? Because I think you actually know better than I would on this particular subject.
So the human brain loves to find patterns, and we are good at finding patterns even when patterns don't exist. And that's just how our brain functions. And so if the evidence or what you're considering is taking a little part of our DNA, and if you put it in a certain order and then you assign it a certain number, and then it turns into an equation that sounds, when you're going that many steps, this is finding a pattern where there isn't any. Like it's sort of the same thing when people look at biblical text and they assign numbers to things and they think that there's secret codes in the biblical text. You can find a pattern in almost anything, but that doesn't mean that it's there purposefully and meaningfully.
Well, I forgot to mention that this pattern in the DNA, you have to factor out 37 to get the mathematical equation for a triangle. So I don't quite know what the significance of that is, but there's a lot.
I don't know what the significance of that is either, Steve. I don't know why you brought that up, to be honest with you.
Right, yeah, I just forgot to give a full explanation.
Okay, but I'm sorry, Steve. I'm going to be real with you. I think what you just said was kind of rude because you didn't actually answer Sarah at all. Were you listening to Sarah? Do you have anything to say to what she had to say?
Well, she thinks I'm just seeing patterns. I heard what she's saying. She's just writing this off as, oh, there's just these patterns, and it doesn't mean anything. She just thinks they're just random. It's just just a random thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, yeah. Obviously, there's going to be patterns when you're trying to communicate using math. Of course, there's going to be patterns involved, of course.
Well, the fact that you have to knock out 37 to make it work, I mean, it seems like you are starting with your conclusion and then rearranging things until you get to the conclusion that you want.
Yeah.
Well, if you take the numerological values in the very first book in Genesis, and 37 in Hebrew, what they call it,
yeah. Steve, I'm sorry. I don't think you're listening to Sarah. At least you're not directly responding to her, right?
Okay. So how is it that I'm supposed to respond when she's just dismissing my beliefs? It's just patterns. Just, trying to see patterns that don't mean anything.
Can you support the patterns with evidence? Like, can you give us more evidence that would say that this isn't just a pattern that because it does sound pretty far-fetched. So if you have a better argument or better support, that'd be great.
Right, because you use an interesting word too. You use the word communicate, that people are trying to communicate with us. And that's like, I see patterns, but I don't necessarily see something trying to communicate with us, right? Does that make sense? So yeah, go ahead, Steve.
The evidence is there's a paper titled The Wow Signal of the Terrestrial Genetic Code that was published about 15 years ago in Icarus, reputable scientific journal Icarus, by a couple of scientists, Maxim Makakov and, I forgot the other guy, Sherbach, and Vladimir Sherbach. And it's all in that paper. So I'm just not making something up. It's something I've actually read about.
I'm not saying you're making things up. I'm just like, I think we're on the same page that there's definitely patterns, but like what we're taking as meaningful from those patterns, I think, is where we're deferring, because you're seeing a creator in this. And by the way, this isn't something that folks who talk about the extraterrestrial believe, right? Christians talk about this. They say, look at DNA, look at how amazingly designed it is, and that's evidence for God, right? So that's across lots of belief systems, actually. So this isn't that far-fetched. This is actually a very popular idea. But I think where I at least draw skepticism is that, yeah, we can see complex things in nature, but complexity doesn't always mean design either, right? I think that there's sort of a dichotomy there. But we're running out of time on this call, Steve, unfortunately. So I want to give you the last word here. Anything else you want to say before we let you go, or anything you want to point us to? Not any papers to read, but maybe just something to think about.
Yeah, I'm not claiming any. I'm not making any like God, creator of the universe claims here. I'm not claiming that life was made by some magic wizard in the sky. I'm just claiming that there's this evidence that there's been interactions between humans and extraterrestrials, and that we have a common cosmic ancestry with other life.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Okay. All right. Maybe we can talk more about that next time, Steve. But until then, I will let you go. Thanks so much for calling.